Hello, I'm Nigel Crawhall, and I am the Chief of Section for the Local and Indigenous Knowledge Systems Program at UNESCO, and it's my pleasure to share this video with you. I wish I could be there in person. I think it's going to be a really interesting side event on linguistic diversity and biological diversity. So I want to jump right in and talk a little bit about what we know about this correlation. And to say that some of the early work was being done in Oceania around the very high levels of linguistic diversity and biological diversity in Melanesia, in Papua New Guinea in particular, but also in Australia itself, trying to understand why you had such high linguistic diversity and what its correlation to natural resource use and sustainability. And from the work by Daniel Nettle, and then also joined by sociolinguist Suzanne Romaine, they published the book Vanishing Voices, which was arguing fundamentally that people have historically found niches within ecosystems, within landscapes, where they can sustain themselves by sustaining and even sometimes enhancing the biological diversity of the territory that they're in. And when you apply that on a global scale, it becomes quite fascinating. So you have areas where you have low biodiversity, where you have language systems across vast territories. So we can think of North America, where in the Arctic you have one linguistic system, primarily. There are several languages in that region, but Inuktitut and its variations go all the way from Alaska right through to Greenland, where the relationships of reciprocity and knowledge are quite key in an Arctic landscape. Or in the Sahara, where you have Tamashek and the whole of the Tamazight language group that covers basically the entire Saharan region up into the Atlas Mountains. So people creating different scales of communication and reciprocity and landscape governance depending on the abundance and the particular nature of the landscape. And in some of the work that I have been doing with colleagues and communities in Africa on participatory mapping with hunter-gatherers, it becomes quite explicit that humans change their social structure and social order and rules of natural resource use dependent on the landscape and the abundance of biodiversity. So there's one set of social organizing in the Kalahari, where you have a desert environment, but fairly high biodiversity. So there are many different languages, but there's a series of rules on reciprocity of resource use. So who can hunt in whose territory, who has access to what in whose territory, which is very different from the pattern that you see amongst the Okiek hunter-gatherers in the Mau Forest escarpment area, where these are vertical nomads, where there's also high biodiversity, but it's organized in a mountain landscape. So the social organization is around the way the mountain system works, and which is very different from how hunter-gatherers in the Congo Basin, where you have exceptionally high biodiversity, how they self-organize in that space, and much looser rules on resource use, but still the idea that each family and each clan has a duty to the territory that they live in, and this is expressed through their cultural system, their linguistic system, their spiritual system. And all of this connects up with the work, the Nobel Prize winning work of Elinor and Vincent Ostrom on the governance of common pool resources. And so when we put these two pieces together, the idea that humans need to sustain themselves in biological niches where they adapt their culture and language to that space, and then the idea of how humans make complex decisions around resources, that there is some degree of competition and need for them. So how people create collective systems of governance. And I think the policy implications of this are quite important. The one is that governance is a really serious issue in terms of sustainability for the planet, for the sites, and at different scales. And that is very different in the traditional systems of governance, which are constantly evolving. It's very different from the colonial framework, which was an extractive model. So, I mean, it's sine qua non that the purpose of colonialism was extraction of resources to feed the metropole, which then disconnected this sense of responsibility or sustainability of resources. So in examining how we move forward policy-wise, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and in particular the Joint Program of Work on the links between cultural diversity and biological diversity, invite us to work together with Indigenous peoples, with other natural resource custodians to understand why it's important to sustain linguistic diversity, the system that understands and governs and structures natural resource use, and how people distribute knowledge in the community and reproduce that. So I think it's a great opportunity in the IUCN Congress. It's really exciting to see this side event is happening. We wish you good deliberations. And from UNESCO's side, we'd like to continue to work with different parts of the world on a better understanding of how the joint sustaining of linguistic diversity and biological diversity will bring us the results that the planet itself needs. So good deliberations, and we look forward to the follow-up. Thank you.